Okay, YouTubers, we are back. We are back now. To start stitching. So before we do that, we will show you that we'll take our pricking irons that we have, and that we will go ahead and smack those through the leather. So that we can get our needle and thread through there. So we hammer those through like so. Then we will take our thread, we will measure it. And the way you measure these is to measure the length of what you're going to stitch, and then take it times 4 times the length. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll give it a little bit extra. Cut that off. Sorry about bumping the camera. And then we will take our needles, and I will show you how we thread our needles. And then I will take you over to our stitching pony. And I'll show you how we will stitch. Our leather items up. So again, I appreciate you watching my videos. Please like and subscribe. I need to get 1,000 subscribers so I can get monetized and get some sponsors so that I can start getting better equipment to do better videos for you all. Because I am doing these videos for free. And I am limited in the amount of funds that I can put into this. So as I have sponsors, it will definitely help me to put on more free content for you guys. And you can let me know down in the comments section what you'd like to see. Bifolds, trifolds, minimalist. I've done a couple DOP bags, which is, you know, where you put your toiletries, your shaving kits type thing. And those are pretty neat. We can do a couple of those later on. I would like to do build-alongs for about everything that I have, which is going to be hundreds of designs and stencils, which should give you guys a well-rounded experience level in leather. So for now, we've got our holes punched, and I did the thread so fast I forgot to show you how we do this. But basically what you do is you thread your hole, you pull it through, and you take your needle and you stab through your leather, or stab through your leather stitching, okay? And then you pull that back through, and then as you pull that back through, and you pull this tab and this at the same time, it makes a little knot, and it's on there quite tight. You do that at each end of your leather. Now we can proceed with our stitching. So let me get my stitching pony set up, and I will move my video camera over there. So here's my video camera and my stitching components. Should be good. Should be a good view. Should be able to see. Let me see here if we can turn this around here like such. Let's see here how that works. Okay. And I'm going to show you all how to hand stitch. I'm not going to go into depth on hand stitching, but what I am going to do is I'm going to basically show you the hand stitching technique. And in a different video where I teach you how to do leather, as a business, then I'll teach you more on how to get down to the nitty-gritty on stitching. But on hand stitching, I'm going to show you how I do it, okay? There's various ways of doing it. I'm going to show you how I do it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do what they call a saddle stitch, which is a safety stitch. And you want your saddle stitch to look like it's going at an angle, and that fits the diamond tip pricking irons that we have, leather pricking irons. And so on this, we always will want to do a couple back stitches to lock in our stitches. But in this case, I'm going to start at the top here and come down and do my back stitching here, because then I'm going to have back stitching here, back stitching on the other side, but on this top I'm going to leave it non-back stitched because it's just going to make for a better appearance. But then on the bottom of the wallet we will back stitch it to give it the strength, because that's where we need the strength, okay? And in this case we don't really need the strength here. So the best thing to do is to put your thread through, marry up your thread like this, okay, till it's even. Then when we put it in one side, we come through the other with the left hand, grab it, come behind here, behind, and grab it and pull it through, right? Turn, put it back through that same hole on this side of the thread, and then when you pull it through, you pull it tight, you pull it like that, right? And then you want to make sure that it still syncs up, and that'll be your first stitch. All right. If we were doing back stitching, we would start here, here, come back 2, come forward 2, and then continue stitching. But since we're not doing a back stitch here, we're just going to continue. So we'll go to stitch number 2, pull it through, come on this side, turn, pull our stitch through. Okay. Again, come on the back side here, come through, pull. And since this is a single piece of leather and it's kind of thin, we don't want to pull real hard because it'll kind of bunch up like you saw it do that just a few minutes ago. But see, this is how we basically want to get this stitching. We want to see this little cross hatching of the stitching going on. And that makes for a nice looking stitch product. And that's what we want. We want a good looking stitching product, okay? So we want to go in each hole. We'll follow through. Find the next hole. Always put that through, and then that way you can find your needle on this side with this needle, okay? And then when you pull this out, this one will come right through. And the reason I do this is because traditional stitching is you wouldn't prick the holes all the way through. Traditional stitching is where you would use a stitching awl, and you would pop it through, which would basically put the hole in there, okay? You would use a wheel, mark the line, use a wheel, and the wheel would mark out your stitching tooth notches, and then you would take your stitching awl, put it in the stitch notch, poke it all the way through, then you marry it up with this, just like I showed you, and then pull it through, and then push it back through, okay? Just like that. So, but since we already pricked it all the way through, instead of using our stitching awl, because usually you would have a stitching awl in this hand and the thread in this hand. And so when you came through with your stitching awl and you came back through, you would fold your stitching awl in. You would have your stitching awl in your hand like this. You'd pop it through. When you would turn your hand, right, you would palm the stitching awl in your hand, and then in between your two fingers you would pull this out, and then you would stitch like that. Put that back in between your two fingers, take your stitching awl, turn your hand, poke it back through. Take your palm, your stitching, all back in your hand, so on and so forth. So that's why I do it this way, to simulate always doing a stitching all. That way, if I ever do stitching all, which I do sometimes, but rarely, the technique is already down and you're not having to readjust, and it's already more natural. So you put that in, you come through, chisel again, come on this side, pull it through, turn, come back through, and I will show you more detail later on how to do stitching. But there is the basics of stitching. And so now, just to save time, I'll just go ahead and knock this out. And you can see how hand stitching is done. And you can see that because we're coming basically in and tight, okay? So we're coming in, and then with this needle, we're coming back through with this needle, and then we're pulling them tight. We're basically crossing over like that and coming back out and crossing back over. And that's making our lock stitch. So that if the leather ever got cut, that you can pull this, as you can see, and it's not going to come out, right? It's in there. So that's what's nice about hand stitching and a safety stitch. They used to use this on wallets. That's why they call it saddle stitching, because they used it on saddles, which, you know, when you have a rider that's riding a 1,000-pound horse or heavier, he doesn't want to get thrown off and trampled or fell on. So he wants a saddle that's going to be stitched to stay on. And sometimes it can be some pretty brutal riding if you've ever ridden a horse. If you've never ridden a horse, you ought to give it a try. It's a lot of fun until you fall. And I have had a horse fall on me before. And that's not a lot of fun. Anyway, so we are almost finished with our stitching here, as you can see. Just back and forth, back and forth. You know, it's the same process. And the other thing you want to do in the process is, let me show you here. So as we come through with our needle, and we come to the back side, when we turn and come back through, we come on this side of our leather, stitching, and as we put our needle in, we pull back through at the same time so that we don't hook this needle into that leather, because if we do that and then we try to pull it, it's going to cinch up on us and it's not going to pull all the way through, and it's going to be a mess. So you always want to make sure you pull back through. And now we're going to do a back stitch. We're going to do 2 back stitches. So there's where we ended up. So we're going to come back to the same holes we left in before, right? And on this case, when we come through, we're going to come on this side of the leather. As we put that in, we'll pull this back and push through at the same time so that we make sure that we're not penetrating the thread, or stitching, whatever you want to call it. They're synonymous. So as you put that in, you pull back with your finger. Pull back so you're not catching it. And then after you've backstitched twice, you want to finish up by your last one just being put in the slot and pulled tight, right? And that piece is going to get cut off. So, and I'm going to show you how that works here in just a moment. So, let me put my stitching pony up. And we've got this particular piece stitched. Now, when you have this on this side like this, you can either take your scissors and clip it, and then you would take your burnishing tool, or I'm sorry, not burnishing tool, but your thread zapper, and you would push the little button, heats up that little lamp, which gets hot just like a flame would. You'll see a lot of other leather makers, they'll light a lighter and they'll light that and it'll burn that down. Thread doesn't really catch fire very easy, but it will singe. And so as it singes, it'll kind of knot up at the end, and that also helps it keep from poking through the hole. Okay? Now, you just saw that the first one I clipped, I took the thread zapper and then I found the leather piece and I went over it. On the second one is how I normally do it. I just pull it tight and use the thread zapper to put against the leather until the leather pops free. Saves me the step of clipping it and then singeing it. This way, this singes it and clips it free from its base all in one step. Okay? Then you take your little rubber mallet. Okay? I get this from Tandy. I think it's 29 bucks. And you just lightly tap down your thread. And it kind of makes your thread look a little nice. Okay? Makes it look nice. Now, what you want to do with this is, since we're going to use this as an edge, because we're going to make it a pocket, right? We're going to want to go ahead and finish this edge. And to do that, you want to sand that a little bit, even though you see that's it. It's even. We'll just take our little sanding block, 400. Give it a quick little sand, like so. Okay. And then go in one direction. In the single direction, what it will do is it will make it nice and soft and smooth. That's what we want. So we'll do that a few times, and then we'll want to take out our 45-degree beveler, and we want to bevel this little edge off. You can see this edge it's making a square corner, and what we want to do is make this round right here. So it'll look kind of nice, and it'll look finished this way. So we'll just take this and put it at a 45, rake it down our leather. It takes off just a little slither of leather. Throw that away. Turn this over and come back where there's two pieces of leather, and take another little sliver of leather off. And the reason I didn't do this single piece of leather here is because with this big tool, it's hard to get that little piece of leather. It's not really going to matter. But when we have two or more pieces of leather, that's where we're going to want to hit our 45 degree on each side, and then we can take our tool and we can go back and forth and rotate it in a round half circle like this. And then we'll want to scrape it in one direction and down on the middle, then on the other side, in the middle. Usually do, maybe 10, count 10, and maybe do 10, and maybe do 10, 10. So we're turning this each time. We're doing 10, 10, 10. And so we're really kind of rounding this off like this, right? And so that'll kind of give us a round piece. Once that's complete, let's go ahead and scrape this off. You'll get leather on your sandpaper, and you'll want to take your horsehair. I'm going to scrape that off. And kind of just, keep your work area nice and clean. It's always nice to keep your work area clean. The cleaner you keep your work area, it stays off of your leather. And at the end of the day, it'll make for a nicer end product, because you won't get stuff all over your leather that could mar it or make it look crazy. So again, since we've sanded that, we'll just want to go ahead and take and put our tokenol, rub it on this side, the back side, the middle side, just like when we sanded, and the front side. We'll want to do that until all the tokenol on our finger, for the most part, disappears. And if we have any on our fingernail or something like that, we can just go ahead and wipe it off on our towel. But you'll notice how now this is starting to take shape. It's starting to get that round shape. It's starting to slick those fibers. And that's where you come in with your word slicker. And you'll notice that it's still fitting our smallest hole, kind of barely. So between that one, and we could even use the next one. If it feels a little too tight, we can use the next one. And then what we want to do is, if we do use the next one, we'll always want to turn it like this, and turn it like this, and this, and this, and this, as we're going back and forth. And so what that's going to do, it's going to get us that curve feature that we want, right? So we can just keep turning that, burnishing it with the wood slicker, heating that up, and giving it a nice little edge, nice and shiny. And now it's made two pieces of leather look like one. How cool. And so now that looks like one piece of leather. And now we can stick cards and things like that in here, and it'll look like a little pocket. Now, when I changed videos, I went ahead and stitched these down. I showed you how we marked them, and I showed you how we pricking ironed them. I just went ahead and stitched them just like I did this. But to save time, rather than stitching all that, I just went ahead and did it off camera. Okay? So, now that we have that done, what we'll want to do is we're going to want to center this up, right? And we're going to want to put this on this interior. We'll want to glue it along this edge and eventually along that edge. But to start with, we're just going to glue it on this edge. This edge will not get glued because it's going to be our pocket. Remember, our pocket. This edge we could glue. I could show you how to do that. But it's like, once I glue this edge and this edge, it'll keep this still. And then I can go ahead and pricking iron this and go ahead and stitch it. Because the idea of gluing your leather together to your pieces that you're going to stitch over the top is just to hold it in place until your stitching's secured. Once your stitching's secured, the glue doesn't really do anything other than give it a little bit more hold. But typically you don't even need the hold, if that makes sense. Okay? The only other time that glue would be handy would be to hold this edge down if you need it held down for any reason. If you think it was going to like flare up or something like that and you wanted it to be held completely flat or completely down, in that case you could mark and then you could glue this, and that extra glue would help hold that outer edge between the 4mm line and the exterior. Because if I don't glue it between the stitch line and the exterior, if it's not glued, then theoretically this outside piece could kind of roll up, so to speak, just a tiny bit. But on these particular wallets, it doesn't happen. I've made enough of them, I know. So, anyhow, so we're going to measure this, and we're going to go ahead and get ready to glue this. And while this is drying, getting ready to put together, we'll go ahead and mark this side. We'll mark this side, and we'll go ahead and glue ready these to glue. This one, then we'll glue this. We'll get this side ready to glue. We'll glue that, then glue this, and then we'll stitch, and we'll stitch, and then we'll stitch this top. Once those are stitched, we'll want to stitch a part of this at the top, part of this at the top. This will become our inside of our wallet, which when we open it up, that's where our bill's set. When we close it, this will be our inside, this will be our outside, and then we will fold our inside over, and that'll give us our trifold wallet. So, based on that, let's go ahead and put this token all up. And now we're going to want to measure this. So we'll want to measure between here and here. And another good way to measure is to put your square up against this leather and then butt your ruler up against there, and then look, and we're at about 255 millimeters. So if we take 255 and divide it by 2, I think we come up with like what, 127 and a half, something like that. So we want to bring this down on this side, right? And then put our ruler up here against this base. And since this is not going to be seen once this is covered over, we can go ahead and feel free to mark this side up. And we'll go 127, 120, 125, 26, 27 and a half. About right there. Yep. Yeah. Right there. Okay. And then so this end should be 127 and a half. And it is. So we know that's the center of our wallet. And so then what we would do would be to flip this over and look at this. And this is 72 millimeters. And that's going to be, 77. Yeah, 77 millimeters divided by 2. 37 and a half, I think. So we can take our pin. There you go. Let's see. 177 by 2. That's going to be 7. Let's be 1437. That'll be 1. 71. That'll be 17. 71 point. So about 72. Okay, that's about what I said. So six, 17, and 16 is 8, 38. 38 points. One. So we're going to go about 38, 35, 6, 7, 38. About 38 is going to be about right there. So we'll want to mark on the inside of this wallet here. Right about 37 and a half, 38. Yeah, 38. And then we'll carry that over to the middle, right? Using a pin, we'll carry that over to the middle so we can see it, like so. So we'll carry that over to the middle. And so then when we measure it, we got 37 and a half, and we got almost 40, no, hang on. Yeah, 39, so really needs to be about right here. Okay, let's see how that works. So it's going to be about 38, and it's 39. Okay, so right in between those two marks, as we look at them, as we look at that mark, those two marks, and this mark, we'll want to come right down through the middle here, right? And these marks will sand out on the edge. And so this is the best way to do it. And go ahead and line that up, okay? And then go ahead and mark on either side of that. Right? Because we want to glue between here and here. And then that's going to be where we want to line this up to put this in the middle of our project. So then when we remove that, we can go between our lines and take our wing divider and come right through there and come right down to our mark. And so that's where we know how far we need to scratch our leather up, because that's where we're going to glue. And then ultimately that's where we're going to stitch. Yeah. So wipe a little bit off the hands and a little brush, get the brush. And we're going to go ahead and give this a glue. Some contact cement. You want to use contact cement because it's going to hold the best, and you can still peel it off if you need to. You have a little bit of time, but it does give you the best hold. And sometimes, you know, even though it's not supposed to technically hold, after you get your stitching done, having a little extra hold after the stitching done doesn't hurt. It's always nice to have a little bit of over the top. So while we're waiting on that to dry, is we need to let that dry to a touch. we're going to go ahead and do our end, and that's going to put us at about 50 minutes on our video. So we're going to have to make our next part. So as we look at putting that on there, easiest way to do that is take our wing dividers, come down, around, come down, come around, come all the way back up, right? We do the same thing on this end. So when we get these out, let's go ahead and make our marks. For our glue lines, so we know where to glue our pockets. And since those are going to be a little bit longer, we'll use our scuffer. And so we'll want to scuff up to the edge of this pocket. Don't want to scuff that pocket. So don't make that mistake. Or you ruin your project. Just kind of take your rougher and or your awl and rough this area up. But for time saving, since I have the rougher, that's what's nice about the rougher, is if you have it, it'll save a bunch of time. And you can just kind of, you do have to kind of hold it though on the either opposite sides, kind of like this, and kind of give it a hold, because otherwise it'll want to bunch up on you. And you could use this without doing the line. I'm showing you how to do it with the line, but as you get better, since this is exactly 4 millimeters wide, as long as you kept this on the outside edge, you could theoretically not have to put the line all the way around the wallet, as long as you kept that on the edge, like so. As long as you kept that on the edge, when you did your roughing, you know you're going to be roughing up about 4 millimeters worth of space. And so that'll eventually save you a step. And little savings like that as you get better of not having to do those extra steps, but still produce the same quality, is what you want, right? So let me go ahead and scrape this off in the trash can. So I'll do that off the camera here. Okay. We can check to see. This is pretty much ready to go. So we'll go ahead and line this up. Line this center up here with what we had originally marked. We'll lay that on there. Make sure it's good on the edge. Okay. And so before we press it down, we want to kind of take and do a little check between here and the outside, which it's showing about 89. In between this edge and this edge here, we got about 89. So it's pretty close, right? So we know that's about right. And then so we can kind of look at that. We can kind of see that that edge is nice and flat. And we just press that down. And we know that that's going to be right in the center of our wallet. And then this part will fold over here. This part will fold over there with the outside, and that's going to be our trifold. Okay? So that's how that works. So the next thing to do is going to be to glue this. Go ahead and mark this. So with this laying down, this being glued up here, it's in flat. This is going to be the straightest it's going to be. Go ahead and mark this here like so. That's the outside, right? We want to come just on the inside here, about right there. Mark that. Just on the inside here. Mark that. Go ahead and flip that up. Put our edge down through there. Go ahead and rough this up. Since it's just a little line there, we'll just go ahead and use our awl to scratch it up with. It'll scratch up just fine. Just take our and so now what we'll do is go ahead and what I like to do is since I've already got this piece pretty much done down there. It's not stitched down here, but it's set where it's going to be. And so I can go ahead with pretty much confidence and go ahead and glue this area here, or get it ready to glue, right? Get that ready, get this ready, as you can see that. So if you can see that here, it's kind of hard to keep that. Okay. And then I don't want that to, so I'll put our block in there to keep it from folding over, right? Because we don't want it touching yet until it's pretty much more dry, a little more dry. But we can go ahead and put our cement, glue, adhesive, whatever you want to call it, around the edge here on this side. It's always tricky trying to do that and keep it off your fingers. So that's why you always keep your towels around. And then go ahead and take the glue, a little bit, add a little bit more to your brush. Go ahead and add this area here. Okay, like so. Add this. Like so. Add this. Like so. Okay, now we've got these. We can go ahead and put the glue that's in our glue here. like so. Yeah. And glue this. Like so. Okay, let that dry. One more for the other side. And once this is done, basically we'll do a little pricking, iron action on the inside of that wallet. And this thing will be stitched up on the inside. And it'll be just a matter of sandwiching this thing together and taking it to the home stretch. So there we go. Put this back up. And since this is what we started with, it's pretty done. So we can just go ahead and lay this out flat. Come all the way up with it. Press it out. Press it out. Right, press it out. Let's take a real quick measurement. 89, so that's perfect. So we're right on the money with this. And we started with this one next. We can go ahead and take our first, second pocket slot. And go ahead, and what we want to do is marry it up to get it on the outside flush and up tight against that area. And this side, we'll want to come and put it up tight against this area and on the side. And if there's a little bit of slack in the middle, that's okay. We can kind of press down gently and form that like so. And then we'll kind of press it from the outside in, out, rather, like this. Make sure that we continue pressing up through here. Make sure we're covering those holes, which is what we want. Make sure those holes are covered. Yeah, there we go. There. Take our tool and press it on the inside, right? There we go. So that piece is done, and it pretty much looks like we got it pretty dang close. First part out of the gate, I'm going to go ahead and put this piece on. So we'll put this side on, get it married up against here, get it to the outside, press down, get this side married up against here, married up against the outside here. So we want all of those like so. And this is showing like it's a little longer. So what we can do with this is, since it seems to be a little long, because it's wrinkling, we'll just press this up with our finger from the inside. Fix our first little problem. And then press this down so that it's not wrinkled anymore. Which means we probably cut this at an odd angle. Looks okay. I don't know. We'll have to see. Yeah. So we've got a little bit of overhang here. We'll go ahead and trim that off. And so that's why it wrinkled up there. Press that out. Go ahead and take our tool and press everything in there. There we go. So now we've got our pockets on our interior piece, which will then go on our exterior piece, like so. This will get married up and turn, this will turn, and then we'll have our trifold. So we are a little over time on this one, so we're going to stop this video here and push everything to the next video, which we will go ahead and stitch the bottom. That's the first thing to stitch. We'll do some sanding, stitching, and then we'll do sanding around these edges, sanding across the top, light sanding. It looks like it fits pretty good. And then we'll do stitching across that top, stitching there. Then we'll put it together, and then we'll stitch it. We'll finish stitching. Actually, I take it back. We will stitch this top next, and these two pieces next, okay? Because that's going to be the interior of our wallet. We'll go ahead and sand and finish those and round the edges off like we did this edge, because that's going to be the interior of our wallet. So where it opens up, this is going to be a finished edge. We will not stitch here, here, or here just yet, because that is where this marries up to the outside part of the wallet. Okay? So I'll show you that here in due time. So take care. I'll see you in the next video. Please like and subscribe.